Now we continue on with another powerhouse of Trinity's storied football program. This honoree set single-season records for receptions, receiving yards, receiving touchdowns, which stood for 45 years and still ranks in the top 10 for all of those categories. Please join me in celebrating Patrick McNamara.
Patrick McNamara was the most electrifying wide receiver in Trinity College history. Don Miller once told me Pat was the most interesting recruit ever. He said Pat was unique, and I think it was this uniqueness combined with some game time chemistry that was the catalyst of the Trinity offense to be nicknamed the Mac Attack as we went on to win the league championship in 1978. The first game was up at Bowdoin. Pat had 2 touchdowns up there. Both of them were broken plays. Pat just pointed to the end zone and I was able to hit him straight down the middle for touchdowns. Against Bates, we scored on the very last play of the half and the very last play of the game. Both touchdown grabs by McNamara. Final score 14-7 Trinity. 2 weeks later, we played Colby. We got the ball back with less than 2 minutes, down 3 points, and we had to go 80 yards. And again, on the very last play of the game, touchdown grab by Pat McNamara. He had 10 catches versus Coast Guard. He had 12 versus Amherst for 240 yards. And then down at Wesleyan for the league championship game, playing with a pulled hamstring, Pat had 2 touchdowns to not only put himself in the record book, but to put his quarterback in the record book. At the season, when the season was over, Pat led the nation in catches per game. He was All-American, All-New England, All-NESCAC, had school records in touchdowns, receptions, yardage in the season, among other things. So Pat, my friend, I know you can't be here in body, but knowing how unique you are, you're probably hovering around this building somewhere. So to you, to your immediate family, to your extended family, including McNamara's band, congratulations on being the latest and newest and most recent member of the Trinity College Hall of Fame.
I'd like to invite Paul Romano to the stage to say a few words about Pat.
Wow, he's a pretty good football player. I happened to be there to see most of it, if not all. First, it's my honor and privilege to accept this very special recognition. This is Mike's fault for choking me up with that video. As I said, it's my honor and privilege to accept this very special recognition on Patrick's behalf. Our friendship began in 1976 and carried on until he passed away in 2008. I'm so grateful to call him a dear friend. This will get easier, I promise. Thank you, McNamara's, including Nancy, Pat's siblings, for providing this opportunity. And of course, Travis and Wade, who I know Pat would be so proud of. I also know that Jim, I know how proud his mom, Eleanor, and stepdad, Jim, would be of his accomplishments and of this recognition. Pat had a lot of nicknames. People who are well-liked have a lot of nicknames. Pat Mack was raised in Ansonia, Connecticut, in the heart of the Naugatuck Valley. I bring most of this up because I grew up there too. He grew up in a great family and in a community that supported and looked out for each other. It really spoke to the character of who he is. His coaches and extended family meant a lot to him. He had a way of making each of his friends feel special, and as a result, assembled and enjoyed an enormous circle of friends over the years. I couldn't believe it. we would go different places, and Patrick McNamara always saw somebody he knew, and who had a special story with him and understood him. He was a heartfelt friend in every instance. He must be the only athlete whose hometown supporters assembled a kazoo band, turning up on game day as McNamara's band. You've heard about that before, but it was a remarkably exciting thing to see. It brought a lot of energy to the field and gave all of the players a sense that there was a great deal of support for one of our star players, and they were fun in doing so. Patrick rejoiced in, I was going to talk about a whole bunch of different things. When I heard what Michael would be talking about, I didn't need to give you a lot of statistics. I thought more of an insight into who this guy was. Many of you know that already, but it was important to have a feel for what made Pat McNamara so unique and special, not only on the football field. Patrick rejoiced in tangling up even the best defenders with what at the time were some of the most nimble and elusive passing routes in and outside of the NESCAC. His competitiveness carried him beyond the gridiron to the golf course, the softball field, a game of pool, and naming U.S. capitals. We'd drive in the car and he'd smack me when I couldn't get one. In many ways, everything to him, the excitement and energy that came from teasing, competition, was always giving him more energy and bringing him even more into the sort of social scene that we were in at the time. He found a way to make competition out of everything, and that energy made every one of those experiences fun. His hands and ability to get to the ball were nothing short of incredible. He preferred out patterns as they gave him the best chance to show off his special skill of towing the out-of-bounds line with great precision. A skill that we later saw he passed on to both of his brothers, Tim and Terry, who loved to do that drag foot into the sideline as well. Mike Foy and other QBs who had the opportunity to toss the ball to him couldn't help but want to make him their primary, maybe exclusive target, which Pat would have been perfectly happy to support. Defensive backs all over the league were frustrated by Pat's knack for getting under their skin, and as he would say, beating them like a drum, Paulie. He loved to run by you and catch the ball. While Pat racked up recognition in the NESCAC, in the broader D3 environment, and on the national stage as a leading receiver, all divisions in 1979, he never forgot to exude confidence. He had a look that helped make it look so easy. He was calm, he was always dressed perfectly in his uniform. He would always be getting it ready before he went out on the field. And he thought that if he looked clean and it looked like it was easy, he was going to trap that defender again into thinking they could cover him, and they never could. Pat developed an aura around the league that few players in my time around Trinity football could replicate, maybe with the exception of his brothers. But we often knew the numbers of a couple guys on the other teams we were playing, but every team knew Pat. They referred to him as Pat Mack. The linebackers would say, "There's Pat Mack, get Pat Mack." He had a reputation that sort of became ubiquitous around the teams we played, and we ran into them at concerts or social settings or other places. They always wanted to meet him. And he was the guy that was beating them all the time. But they wanted to know what the magic was behind his personality, his swagger, and his way of doing things. I won't speak much about myself in this, but I played two very important roles for him at the time. He took great pleasure in leaving me in the dust every day at practice. I made it hard for him, but truth be told, he won our 2-year head-to-head battle on the practice field by a pretty wide margin. My other important role, and this one will choke me up again, My other important role is to tape his wrist before every game. He'd knock on my locker with a roll of tape, and we'd go around the corner to an empty spot in the locker room, and we'd sit on the bench facing each other, and he would just talk about what he was planning to do for the day in the game, what was on his mind, and I would tape up his wrists. And some of our best conversations happened in that 30 minutes each week before we went out on the field. I could go on for hours about this guy. And his family knows that we spent an awful lot of time together. So the important point of everything that's on my mind that I want to convey to you is he was a different character. He wasn't the fastest guy on the field, but he was the quickest. He was nimble. He got to the ball like mad, and loved to play football. He loved to play, as I said, any sport, even a parlor game. But he really put his heart and soul into the game of football, and it returned it to him in spades. He was so proud of the years that we played here. He was so proud of the relationships we built through our program. And he always felt that those years were a success story for him, as many of you probably do after seeing all these statistics tonight. He was talented and special. I'm so proud for him and his family and for this most permanent recognition, and feel very good for his family, for those of us who had a chance to play with him, a few of which are right down here in front, and just the sense that he was more to this campus than a football player. He was a center of energy that made us all feel better about our experiences, our troubles, and our enjoyments in the lives we had here. So Godspeed, my friend, and thank you so much.
If I could ask Pat's siblings, who are all here tonight, as well as his immediate family, to come up and accept his trophy.